Hey guys, this is Rob. Welcome to episode 5 of the residential Revit electrical series. In this one, we're going to finalize some of the circuiting of the receptacles. We still have a floor receptacle that we need to add an electrical connector to. And as you'll see, it gets a little bit complex and we find visibility issues and things like that. So stay tuned for that, as well as how we are going to deal with the bath fans. So just a shorter episode this time, but hopefully it shows you some basics of family editing and how to deal with some visibility issues with your families. Stay tuned. So here we are back in our Revit electrical residential tutorial project. Where we left off in the previous episode was finishing up circuiting the receptacles in this two-story project. So let's review some of that. I want to show you a few things that I didn't cover, but I would like to specifically cover. Here in our kitchen dining area, you can see I have things circuited up. I ended up circuiting these receptacles to one of the kitchen circuits. I have dishwasher disposal all circuited separately. I tied the hood into this kitchen circuit. So I made use of our circuits, but what I did not do yet is circuit up these floor receptacles. Now the reason I didn't is you recall back in, episode 2, I think, when we installed these, we realized that they actually do not have electrical connections. We had to dive into the architectural Revit built-in families to find a floor box, but like most architectural pieces, it does not have an electrical connector that we need to connect to our panel. So we need to actually edit a family. Now, this is an advanced topic. It will become essential to your success in Revit to learn how to at least do modifications of existing families, because out of the box, Revit's not really made for full production. It's kind of a skeleton that you need to build upon. Anyway, so let's get into some minor family editing. We're going to look at this receptacle, and it's an outlet floor duplex. And we're just going to go to Edit Family up here. And it jumps you into the Family Editor. And right now, it doesn't look very exciting. I can't see a thing. I hit ZA, zoom all, there's nothing here. So we need to find a view where there's something to look at. So on the left, it's kind of like a mini project itself. It has a project browser. It has your properties on the right. And there's other tools up top to help us build and modify families. And we'll cover some of that as we need it. But if you go to the floor plans, ceiling plans, 3D plans, elevations, those are your views that are set up. Right now, there's no 3D view for this device. So that means that it's probably just a symbol. So go to the reference level, and there we go. We see that this family just has a symbol. And if you hover over it, you can see it highlights all one piece. If you click on that, it is a generic annotation. And it's its own family because now we have the edit family available. So the way things are done in Revit is you have a 3D object, which is part of the model, and then you have an annotative symbol or a generic annotation that is nested into this family to give you the look of that symbol that you want in 2 dimensions. So that's how this works. So this is a 2D family, no 3D aspect to it, which is fine, unless you really need to see that box sitting in the floor of your model for coordination purposes. But our purpose here is to add an electrical connection. Let's see how we can do that. So let's just go up to Create. And over here, you'll see all these connectors. Electrical connectors, duct, pipes, cable trays, conduit. So all the system connectors for MEP, we want the electrical connector. So we click on that and adds an electrical connector to a component. And we have to add it to a face. You can see up here, it's hosted, they call it, to a face. Now, do we have any faces to host this to? That is going to be our biggest issue, is there is no 3D faces in this family to even host an electrical connector. So we are actually going to have to add a 3D element to this. So this will get you really kicked off on your family editing experience. So let's see, how do we even do that? So Family Editing 101. A lot of times you'll start off a family's 3D aspect by creating a 3D cube or a box. So that is what we're going to do. We're just going to create a 3D box for this family. Now, we could just start off and hit these buttons here, do shapes, extrusions, blends, revolves. There are different kind of 3D shapes that we can do. You can even, this void forms will even let you cut a hole into a 3D object. We're going to start with the basic extrusion. Now, normally in a family, we would draw some reference planes, reference lines, which are like construction lines that form a skeleton to attach a 3D shape to. We would normally do that if we want to make it parametric and editable in your model. If we want a box under this floor receptacle that we can change once it's in our family, then we need to do all of this stuff. Again, I want to make this very basic. I'm trying to show this project specifically using as much out of the box as I can. So I'm going to do the minimum needed to get this connector in. So we are just going to build an extrusion. So hit the extrusion, and then they want you to draw a shape. We're in sketch mode because there's a check mark and an X. Hit the rectangle tool. We're just going to create a box around this. Dimensions don't matter so much. It's going to be about 8 inches square, which works. And when you draw this extrusion, it wants to know how deep is it. So how far into or out of the screen is it going to be? And up here, the depth is 1 foot by default. We can leave that as 1 foot, and then we can adjust it later. Say, okay, let's see what we get. Now, at this scale, the line type is just super fat. That's why it's just a big blob. Like if you click thin lines, you can see that it's, it's just lines. But the other way to deal with this is in a family, you can easily change the scale that you're looking at it. It won't change anything other than how it's viewed. But it, of course, does change the scale of the symbol because symbols are always the same size in paper on the sheet. So it shrunk it down, which is fine. For now, we just want to see our shape. We're looking at kind of a top view of it, if you will, looking down on it because it's looking at the floor. We need to look at a side view. So let's go to the front. We can go down here and look at the front. Double click front. We need to change its scale as well. Now we see it. And there's this thing here called a reference level. In our case, we're going to be placing it on the floor. We really want it to be below the floor here. If we look at the reference level, we are going to see this box in our model when we put this family in there. In normal two-dimensional view, plan view, I don't want to see this extrusion. I only want to see the symbol. So we can set this box up to be viewed only in certain situations. So what I mean is, if you recall down here, there's different detail levels that you can set your view to, fine, medium, or coarse. And that will allow you to change the level of detail that you see in these families. So what we can do is click on this extrusion, and over on the right, there's a visibility graphics overrides for that. Hit this, and now here's some view-specific displays. We're going to display this extrusion because we clicked on the extrusion, not the symbol. We're going to display this extrusion in 3D, and do you want it to show up in the plan or ceiling plan? No. Do you want it to show up in a front or back elevation, left or right elevation? Yes, that's fine. And then the detail level. We want to be able to control whether we see this extrusion at different detail levels. I want to see it at fine because fine means super detailed. So I want to see all that. Medium is you can decide whether you want to see that or not. And I definitely don't want to see it in coarse. So do that okay. So that should set up this extrusion to be only visible in 3D views and sections elevations, and especially only if it's set up to something other than coarse. So now we have the extrusion made. Now we can apply that electrical connector, which is the last piece. So back to create, back to electrical connector. Now you can see it highlights that extrusion. So that's a face that we can apply. So if I just click here somewhere, it put my electrical connector in there. That's what this symbol is, circle with a plus. So if we click on that symbol and look over to the right, you can see that it's a connector element for electrical loads. So we have a bunch of parameters for this electrical connection that we can set. You'll see a number of these in our model. When we clicked on a receptacle, we actually saw a voltage rating and a load rating and even a load classification. Now, we don't have all of this. We don't need all of this visible in our model. So we need to decide, what do we want to see? First of all, any kind of load like this, what I mean by a load is it's not a panel, it's not a distribution piece, it's actually a load. I want to make it balanced, which means if I make it multi-pole, the load, the watts will be divided among all of the poles evenly, which is how loads typically work. Now, number of poles is 1, which is perfect for a 120 volt receptacle. If that's all I'm ever going to make this floor box is 120 volt receptacle, then I can just leave it at 1 and I don't need to change it. The trick is, if I do want to be able to adjust this in my model, then I need to, what I call is map these parameters to the family, or they also call it associate it. So associate this with a family parameter so that I can get to it when I'm in my model. And I'll show you how that works. That's why we can change the voltage and pole of some of these things that are in our model. I like to go ahead and associate poles as well, just in case I want to change this guy to a 240 volt floor outlet for some reason. I just get in the habit of that. So I'm going to associate it with a family parameter, and it's asking if there's an existing family parameter of a compatible type. There are none. I need to create a new parameter. Again, if this is all new to you, you will have to go through this and try it a few times to get familiar with it. There's a few basic things to learn on basic families. So we're going to call this parameter the same thing. We're going to call it poles, and we can say number of poles or just poles, typically works. Now it's an electrical discipline. It's a number of poles. It already knows that. Now, where do I want to group this? You know, when we open up the edit type, there's grouping of all of these parameters. I like to group this just under raw electrical rather than circuiting, lighting, loads. And it could be under loads, but I like to just call it electrical so they're grouped together. So I'm grouping it under electrical. I want this to be a type parameter because I want to set it once, and I want all of my instances of this floor box to be the same. So I want it to be a type parameter. Okay. And then okay. Now we've created a type parameter. And if we go over to this box up here, the family types, the little blue, click on that. Now it shows us what we would see in the edit type box. An elevation, which is 0 is fine. And here's our number of poles that we just added. So now that means that we can get to this parameter within our family. Now we can't get to voltage, we can't get to load. So we need to continue mapping or associating these connector parameters to our family. So, okay. We need to reselect our connector. Now, power factor, I'm not going to change that in the field. Lagging is normal. Load classification, I do want that available. So, again, create a new parameter. Load classification. And we're adding this as a family parameter. It's going to be a type again, and I want this, again, it put under loads, but I want it under electrical. So they're all together, and say, okay, okay. Let's check again, make sure. There it is. Load classification now is here. Okay, let's do another one. We want voltage available. Same thing. Voltage, type. We would have all of these parameters under all different headings if we just left the default. So we want to force it to go to electrical. Okay, okay, I like to verify that it is where I want. There it is. And I'll set it to 120 volt as a default. And then the load classification, not all of our load classifications that we find in our model are actually in this family. As you can see, there's only a few. So just leave it as other for now. And then when we put it in our model, we can actually set that. What else do we need to map or associate? We want the apparent load. Now that they've been associated or mapped, they have little equals. So let's click on this little teeny button over here. And this one is a new parameter again called apparent load. And this will be under electrical. Okay. So now you're learning how to edit a family. And again, this is key to your success in Revit, and we will cover more of this. I have a bunch of other videos on editing families. The true power of Revit happens when you create or obtain these custom families, and it makes your life so much easier because they're already set up. You can make them look exactly how you want in your model and go from there. So we just want to make sure we have the data here available. So that should be it. And let's just double check. We have number of poles, a load, and let's put this at a standard receptacle, commercial at least. And there's the defaults. We are good to go. Now we can save this as a separate file if we want. But for now, I'm just going to load this into my project, and I don't even want to save it outside of my project as a separate family for now. Now, if you're trying to create a library of custom families, then you would go ahead and save this and give it a proper name and things like that. But for now, for this project, I'm not going to save it externally. We're just going to load it, and I'm going to overwrite the existing version. Now, do I just want to overwrite it, or do I want to overwrite it and its parameter values? Now, if I'd already set up some parameter values in my model for this receptacle, then I may not want to overwrite the existing parameter values. So that's why I typically go with overwrite the existing version, but not its parameters if they were set. And then this just says it's not editable. You want to make it editable? Sure. Let's edit that. And that just means that it let me change it. And the receptacles disappeared. Well, let us figure out what happened here. They worked fine before we added that extrusion. There's one here. What is this? Let's look at this one. Over here, it's on level 2 at 0, 0. So we are seeing the level 2 receptacle, floor box, while we're in level 1. Well, first of all, that issue will be a view range issue because, as you recall, this floor box is an extrusion now that sticks down below the floor. What is our view range set up in this view? Under the view template. So let's go look at view range. And the bottom is our associated level at 0 offset. And the top is the level above at 0 offset. If the floor box above is mounted to level 2, it protrudes down in below level 2 by 5 or 6 inches. So that's why it is visible. We need to lower the top of our range to eliminate seeing the floor box. So we'll need to come down, I would say about 6 inches. So minus 6 inches. Apply that. And that is often needed, as we find out. And there we go. Now we do not see level 2. That fixes that issue. But we still can't see our floor boxes. We can investigate this a number of ways. Is it a view range issue? Did we mess up the family? What's going on? We can look at view range as an issue, but we didn't change where that symbol is. We didn't really change anything that should affect it, but let's just play around with that. So let's go into our view range again. And let's look at the view range, the bottom of our view range. We are at the associated with 0. We know this box goes down below the floor. It appears that it got mounted to the right level because level 2 was there. Let's reduce the bottom of our floor. Let's go minus 1 inch. Say apply. Okay. Now they showed up. Well, why is that? We had to go below the floor to see them. Well, what it turns out to be is that the extrusion starts at 0 and goes down below the floor. So the view range doesn't see the extrusion exactly at the level, even though the top of our extrusion is right at the level. So in effect, adding an extrusion to this family has changed its visibility properties from when it was just a symbol. It's a very obscure issue that I frankly have never run into before. So let's go back into our editor, edit family, and go to our front view. As you recall, this extrusion only goes up to the reference level, and we need to pop that up just above the reference level so that it can be seen, this extrusion can be seen within our view range that we set up. So just, again, adding an extrusion to this symbol made it behave differently in Revit. Simply moving that up above the floor will make it visible. So load into the project. We don't want to save it. Let's just overwrite the existing. Now, if we set our view range back to exactly at floor level, bottom associated level with 0 offset, apply, we should still be able to see our floor boxes. And there we go. So we just had to pop that extrusion up just up into our space a little bit. Hey, and if you find this information useful, I'd love it if you hit that like button down below to help propagate it to others. And if you want to stick around for more electrical only Revit videos, please hit subscribe and even leave a comment if you like. So there, we learned something from that tangent, kind of an obscure issue to deal with. So we're going to circuit these up now. I'm going to figure that these receptacles are part of the kitchen and dining area, which need to be on kitchen small appliance circuits. And then the rest of this I'm going to call just living space. So let's get these guys circuited like we did before. Now we have our power button because we added the power connector. Power. And then I like to call this receptacle dining. Apply that. And then I like to edit the circuit and add the rest of these, and they're easily added now. You can see them highlight up, just like I did before. Finish circuiting. And then I hover over one, hit tab until I see the dashed circuiting. Click on that. Now I've selected the circuit. Arc wire, and there's our arcs. And we can adjust these as we see fit. We can move where they're attached. Those look fine. They're attaching nicely, and let me get out of the thin lines. They're attaching nicely to this symbol, which is nice. Sometimes they don't. So let's get this, and I like to play with the arc. I get picky about these things. And there's our circuit. And then I want to attach these guys to this hallway circuit. So again, hover over till I get the circuiting, click on it. Now I'm in the circuit. Then I can edit circuit and by default add to the circuit these other receptacles. Those are added. Finish editing. Go back to one of them, hit tab, select the dash, click it, and arc wire it. And then I can adjust my arc. Now, one thing I noticed when I was putting these in is we did not yet assign, let's go to edit type for this floor box. We did not yet assign a load classification since we edited it. So we're going to go to receptacle. Okay, and now we apply the correct load classification, which applies the correct demand factor and separately labels it down in our panel schedule. So let's take a look at our panel schedule. Since last time we saw it, we've added a lot of circuits. Here we go, see that? I also want to show you, in case there's a few here like I did, where I forgot to name the circuit description as I was placing it. Now I need to go back and figure out what was circuit 3. Well, I can go back to my plan, and on a simple plan like this, it doesn't take long to find it. Like, for example, I just found it here. But on a complicated building, you can imagine, with multiple floors or, hundreds of thousands of square feet of school, finding that circuit would be a nightmare. So let me show you a trick. You can go to the panel. As long as you have these plans already tabbed, click on this circuit, escape out. Click on this circuit. It's selected. Now if I go to first floor plan, it highlights in blue. And so if you're out here, you can kind of see some of it starting to turn blue. This is the panel. And the circuit is surrounded by this blue dash. So this will help you narrow in on where it is. And here's the blue receptacles that indicate those are on that circuit 3. So that will help you find it. So now, again, let's escape out of there, tab into this circuit, click on it. And from here, which I should have done, I can type receptacle, and this is another kitchen receptacle circuit. We have a few other circuits. Let's see what we have. Down here, 13, click on 13, go back to first floor plan. There's the panel lit up. Do we see any blue lines? Oh, here it is. A little bit of blue down here with a little bit of blue line. So that is in our laundry. We can highlight this and take receptacle, another laundry circuit. And then the final one that I saw that was not labeled is this guy. And where is he? First floor, 21 right there. There's the blue highlights. And that is just the circuit we were dealing with, which is kind of extended hall So we'll just call this hall. Tab, receptacle, hall. Okay, so that finishes those. So then to deal with this circuiting in this kind of order, down the left, down the right, let me show you where that's taken care of. Under Manage, go to MEP Settings, go to Electrical Settings, and then you would think it'd be down here with panel schedules, but that's not where it is. Now, one thing you can do with panel schedules is we can merge multi-poled circuits into a single cell. I like the visibility of that, so let's do that. But under a General, there's all these different electrical settings and how you want to display your circuit settings, name by phases, capitalization of names, and then we get to circuit sequence, which is what I changed. Now, the default is typically just numerical, 1, 2, 3, in order. I like to move it down to odd, then even. So it goes down the left side and then down the right side. You can set this however you like, but that's what I like to do, and that's helps with the circuiting for me, so I don't need to move things around. And as far as moving things around, I have a whole video, which I'll link above, which talks about how distribution systems work and how to do some panel editing. You can edit templates, but I'm going to show you how you can move things around. You can just click on a circuit, and then up left, you have some move tools here. You can move it up, move it down, or move it absolutely to an exact place. So if I just move down, you can see that just keeps dropping over here. I can move it up. Now, if I move this down, this entry hall, move it down, it will actually swap with the dining right there and then continue moving down. Now I can move this to an absolute. So the green one is what I'm moving, and I'm going to move it to there. So you can move things to places. I can move it to this place, and that will swap it. So there's a lot you can do with the circuits. And since Revit automatically assigns circuits for you, that you need to have this flexibility to arrange things the way that you would like. You can change the template of this, and we'll get into that later. That's more advanced, is how to mess with the templates for these things. But for now, the basics of this are we can move things around. We can also create spares and spaces in here. So quite a bit we can do with the panel schedule, but I just wanted to show you some of the basics. But the other thing I want to show you here is on these bath fans, I did not circuit them to the bath receptacle. I've decided that I would like them connected to the lighting circuit. Now they can either be on the same switch as the lights when I get to circuit the lighting, or there'll be a separate switch, but either way, I want them on the lighting circuit so that in my switch box, I only have the one circuit in there. So to do that, I will eventually connect this to the lighting circuit, but for now I don't have a circuit. So I'm just going to use the wire tool, systems, way over here, wherever these can move around. So right here is wire. If you click on wire, now I can pick the connector of this bath fan. I don't have to use the automatic wire feature. This is the manual wire feature. Right here, you'll find something highlight. That's the connector for this bath fan, the electrical connector. One point, and then here's the midpoint of the arc, and then I'll draw the end of the arc right there, and then it hooks it to the middle. It doesn't draw a home run because it's not assigned to a circuit. So I can still just put a little text note here, and it says 2 lights, something like that, to indicate on the power plan that this goes to the lighting circuit and refers the installer to look at the lighting circuit. So that works for that. And I've already done that up here on the second floor, bath fans to lights to lights. So you can see the second floor, I still have a floor box to hook up. Luckily, we went through and fixed it so it has a power connector. We want to connect that to the master bedroom circuit. So let's highlight this circuit with tab a couple times. There it is. Edit circuit, add to circuit, right there, finish it, and then we have to get back into it with tab to get the arcs, and it decided that this is the closest place for an arc. So that completes that. And one thing I want to show you here that I did, in this hallway, this receptacle and this receptacle around the corner, and to have a single arc, it was really cumbersome. I didn't want the arc cutting through the middle of the room. So I used, like I showed in a previous episode, I used the add a vertex. So if you right click on here, you can insert a vertex into your arc, and this little dot shows you where it's going to be, like right there. So now I have extra control of this arc shape to start getting it to bend around a corner. So keep that in mind when you need to do some interesting geometry. Now this one here, I didn't mind it cutting through here because it's not cutting across any text or any other lines. So back to first floor, one more thing I want to add is I want to get a receptacle out here by this condensing unit for servicing it. And at least in commercial buildings, you have to have a receptacle within a certain distance. I think like within 25 feet. So let's go ahead and right click, create similar. Let's get a receptacle out here near this condensing unit, and we'll just attach it to this receptacle circuit. So just get into the circuit, edit circuit, and click there, finish it, tab, arc. Bam, there it is. So once you get familiar with this, it goes fairly quickly. You can move these around. Again, if you need to, go thin lines so that you can see this little grip. And there's the grip, so you want this grip to hit the circle, not there. So use thin lines to your advantage. So that should complete the circuiting of our receptacles, including that floor receptacle that we had to edit. And that concludes this episode. Next time we will get into installing some lighting fixtures and getting those circuited eventually as well. So until next time, thanks for watching.